Hi everyone, Malcolm Ross, great to be back at bpmNEXT. I'm the head of product for Appian. Last time I did this about 3 years ago, back in 2016. So again, happy to see everyone, a lot of common faces here at the bpmNEXT show. My philosophy, I'll talk a little bit more about philosophical approaches to product management and product marketing. I like to always focus on what I call the fundamental truths of enterprise operations. People, process, data. These are really kind of where you can't go wrong in focusing on. And when I look at process over the past several years, I see a lot of this. I see a lot of hype cycle curve. We're in the RPA AI curve right now. We were in like the Six Sigma curve in the mid-2000s, the TQM curve in the 90s. And ultimately we get to a plateau of adoption. But over time, this is ultimately what we see. Process is one of these markets where we see a lot of hype cycle curves up and down, but we see continuous growth. We see vendors like Appian and other vendors really consistently growing year over year over year by providing process automation capabilities. RPA, AI are the hot terms today. So if you haven't figured it out, if you want to get leads inside a BPM vendor, it's RPA and AI is what people like to talk about and hear about. But it's backed by, of course, BPM rules, BPA integration in these environments. But unfortunately, what I see in the marketplace is a lot of this. A lot of companies having fractured approaches. They stand up an RPA Center of Excellence, AI Center of Excellence, BPM Center of Excellence, integration team. They don't talk to each other. They're all doing process automation and overlapping. So what we really focus on at Appian, and I propose that everyone really focus on, is that term intelligent automation, that we need to start to unite these technologies into more seamlessly interacting on an automation pattern, incorporating RPA, BPM integration, AI into a holistic solution offering. Now, talking about RPA, I always talk about this as RTA, robotic task automation. It's the true definition of what it's doing. It is a very powerful tool and very meaningful inside of a lot of organizations to provide automation capabilities. Artificial intelligence, I think we all know this, but it's also a commonly abused term. It's applicable to a wide variety of areas inside enterprises. It has a very high applicability to process automation, especially in achieving better process outcomes. Integration, of course, is the modern challenge that we have today. As we built up all these systems over the past several years, we have now, say, almost 2 decades of SIL architecture design behind us. We have a lot of dispersed systems across the enterprise that we have to work with effectively. And of course, business process management, as we see, is holistically grown up very well. The thing I love about BPM and the BPM spec is the idea of simplifying the process orchestration, aligning business and IT on process goals inside of here. So with that, we always need to be focused. I always like to talk about DEMO, design, execute, manage, optimize. This is the goal of BPM solutions, to easily design solutions, execute, orchestrate, manage, and continuously optimize. Some of us play in just one of those areas. Some of us provide the entire circle. But that's the fundamental pattern of this. BPM, though, in intelligent automation today, is really what I consider the verb that binds these things together. It's the twisting of these together into a holistic solution. So BPM really is the glue that brings all these elements together. BPM unites RPA with humans. We see a big deficiency in the RPA market right now of not properly handling exceptions and having better human-bot orchestration and holistic process design as well. And in the context of AI, AI should be designed to optimize process outcomes. So this can be applied in a wide variety of areas. I can do process analysis, transaction history analysis, identify patterns, do process discovery, or I can apply AI and just doing natural language processing and better first level triage. And BPM, again, needs to integrate systems. We need to adopt standards like Open API, Swagger definitions. We need to adopt standards like microservices architecture. The core of a BPM system must be much more of an integration platform maybe than it was in the past in adopting these modern integration standards. To mention Neil Ward-Dutton for the sake that he's not here, we did some research around this with Neil. There's a free white paper available in that URL, so feel free to download it if you so choose. And this is just an intelligent automation buyer's guide, which talks about this as well. So Neil is a great resource to collaborate with. We also worked on a survey tool for our prospects to come in and say, understand their readiness for intelligent automation by measuring them on different axes of RPA, BPM, integration, and AI capabilities. And it gives a nice spider diagram report based on kind of where they're weak and their overall intelligent automation practice. Of course, with the goal of uniting all this together inside a single practice offering of intelligent automation, uniting all these technologies in one solution offering. And that's the Ignite format. So we're going to go to a Appian demo. And the Appian demo, of course, is going to be kind of an all-existing product As you may know, Appian's been engaged with RPA for a couple years now. So we OEM and resell the Appian, the Blue Prism product with the platform, provide first level support of Blue Prism with Appian, as well as implementation services. So very first thing, when we talk about robotics, so I'd like to first talk about my own, oh, what's going on? What happened to my, oh, I got to totally get out of the PowerPoint. Here we go. I hate PowerPoint on Mac, yeah. Anyways, going back 4 years, I had a prediction inside Appian that I thought robotics is going to be hot, right? So the idea of applying robotics and overall process orchestration is going to be the thing. I misunderstood the market and thought it was an actual robot. So I went out and got $35,000 in budget from my corporation, bought this, which is a Baxter light manufacturing robotic automation platform. As you can see, it's a humanoid shape. It's humanoid friendly, so it has the ultrasonic sensors around the top there that detect human presence so that the arms won't necessarily hit someone. It can automatically reroute their arms. And we engaged in this in 2015, early 2016, thought, robotics is going to be a hot thing coming up in the market, want to be on top of it. We taught our robot here to basically work inside a pharmaceutical lab. The use case was and apply titration tests. And the titration test was performed by the robot. If you're familiar with titration tests in pharmaceuticals, it's very repetitive. We're constantly measuring the pH of a chemical combination by adding increments, small increments at a time. Suffice to say, I got it wrong. I realized as we were getting into these robotic platforms and working with the ROS operating system, that's the robotic operating system, it's really, really, really hard. Not just hard in a sense, but like getting the robot to hold that cup still was really, really, really hard. Getting to hit like the individual pattern, getting to press that thing exactly in that like millimeter location was really, really hard. And I think, I would say, I got it wrong. So what RPA today is really, it's robotic process automation in the today sense. It is not robots, it is desktop scripts. And the workforce that's being replaced is not the blue collar workforce, it's the white collar workforce that's being replaced. So let's take a look at an example of this in a quick sample, and then we'll take a look at a demonstration how we put these things together in Appian. So I have a simple little invoice example here. And of course, everyone knows that the entire presentation is recorded and posted on YouTube after as well. So feel free to watch that afterwards. But here I have a number of invoices, a very traditional BPM orchestration solution, inbound invoice processing, purchase requisition management, things like this, and allow me to monitor the invoices inside of here. But we're going to enhance this solution with robotic process automation capabilities. So if I go to my vendor details environment, I'm going to say, well, for this vendor, I want to take Orange, one of my vendors right here. I want to see some information, what's going on with this vendor. How many invoices I've processed this year, product conformity issues, how many times they've had inconformity with the product offerings of what they shipped me versus what I was billed for. Also things like invoices paid on time, all the satisfaction I have with this customer as well, and invoices overdue. Now if I want to process an invoice, I might traditionally look at my overall purchasing management system and invoice handling and go ahead and say, well, let's go ahead and they sent me a new invoice. It may be manually sent here, so let's go ahead and scroll down to my invoice PDF. I'll go ahead and upload that. And with my invoice PDF, I'll go ahead and upload file and get a preview of that invoice. So here we have a simple example. Now traditionally, of course, I could have done a variety of things. I could have applied capture, OCR, document scanning, using solutions off the shelf and even open source platforms like Tesseract, migrating that. But I didn't just want to do that. I need to load this invoice data into some legacy data. I want to take the invoice data, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, to load it into SAP. I don't want to deal with my BAPI calls in SAP. I just want to do a web interface integration. So that's where RPA really shines, is that individual task of document capture extraction and loading into external environments like that. So let's go ahead and hit the send to robot action. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and send that to a robot action. And now that integrates Appian, the process orchestration, with the robotic process automation platform. So here we see the invoice popping up on a robotic desktop. It's going to automatically do a scan capture of that inside this PDF viewer environment. It's going to take that extraction, load it into an Excel document, and then simulate, say, posting a file with all the information into, say, a FTP file drop, where I can then save it somewhere off to that sense. And that's RPA, right? So if you haven't seen RPA in action, that's it. It's robotic scripting of the individual tasks. What we see right here is the RPA dashboard from Blue Prism. So when I'm a digital workforce manager, a manager of robots, these are the types of metrics I need to monitor. I need to monitor my workforce activity. My workforce availability is my bots. How often are they being used? You know, I bought, say, 5 bots. Are they offline most of the time? Am I using them? Also, what is the total number of automations I'm applying? What types of automations I'm doing? How is this against my licensing? You know, what's the type of work I'm doing? And more importantly, the exceptions. This is an area that is an increasingly problematic area for RPA platforms, is handling the exceptions. You know, when a web developer changes, say, that interface, the RPA bot often needs to be retrained to adapt to that new interface. In that retraining time, isn't going to get exceptions. The bot's going to fail to load the proper information. So again, we can see that how we integrate that back into Appian, that once I've sent that information to the RPA platform, I can go over to my assigned task list and see any exceptions that were kicked into the system. So if I see that exception, this one, again, it's a demo environment, so I have a prescribed exception I've implemented here. And that prescribed exception here I've defined is it wasn't able to reconcile the exact purchase order number. So let's go ahead and hit accept. I see that original invoice that was received in, and go ahead and say, let's go ahead and reconcile that. There's my purchase order that it is, and go and hit complete reconciliation. So that's a good example of how you want to integrate humans, bots into holistic applications, pass things off to bots to handle tasks. The bots now handle the majority of the work, so my exceptions now are then passed off to humans, and I have that holistic business process flow. Now, more importantly as well, I need to have then more holistic monitoring. So when we talk about intelligent automation monitoring, it's not just, you saw Blue Prism was looking at just the bot monitoring. Now I want to look at things like, what's the total processes overall I've done? So these are not just RPA processes, but overall processes. What's the total number of resources I've used? More importantly, what's my time savings hours? What's the robot utilization? Surfacing some of the information up to this environment and total number of sessions as well. And showing me the percentage of exceptions and how I'm handling that information inside the environment in Appian as well. So again, I'll start to align the human environment with the robotic environment into a holistic dashboard system. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the design time experiences of how we actually build this. And Appian, again, we have a strong feeling, we made this feeling several years ago, that integration is the future, microservices architecture are the future, and RPA or BPM platforms are really orchestrators of these services. This is how we always saw our own platform before. Over, let's say, 10 years ago, our philosophy was, Java classes, Java development was kind of how it was, and you could see the entire Appian process platform as a Java class orchestrator. Each individual service was basically its own Java class. And now we're basically taking that, okay, let's replace those Java classes, and now let's make those microservices. So that we're now orchestrating all those microservices across the entire platform. So if I take a look at first, the most important design concept that we introduce is the idea of integrations and connected systems. So when you go to the Appian Connected Systems environment, we have pre-built no-code integrations to a wide variety of vendors out of the box inside the system. So you see here, like Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere on the RPA side. You see a variety of AI services, integration services back in systems, and more importantly, support for standards like OpenAPI, Swagger. If you believe in BPM, in making things easy to do for process business IT, Swagger, OpenAPI is a really important standard to adopt to make web services endpoints human readable so that you can easily map those to your environment. So if I go ahead and, I'm not going to type in all my credentials to these from scratch. We'll go ahead to an existing one. And let's just take a look at that Blue Prism connection. So once I have that Blue Prism authentication credential set up, I can go ahead and say test that connection. And now I have that connection established. And this is an important concept as far as that integration, that authentication step. If you've also built integrations before, you're aware that authentication is highly variable depending on which platform you do. Not everyone adopts OAuth or API key. Even major platforms like AWS have proprietary ways of authenticating to their systems. So you need to make that simple by prompting them for the simple connection string information. As we go into use new integration, say BP integration, we'll just call this like this. And I'm now going to treat this as a discrete integration service. You'll see also that the integration to us is its own design time experience. Also important concept if you're microservices focused that, again, you shouldn't have integrations inside the process orchestration environment. These should be managed separately and then reused across the entire environment. It should be part of process orchestration. Integration itself should be a standalone thing and then leverage inside all these different ways, like in rules or other environments. Now, once I have the integration, we also want to focus on having a very simple way of discovering the services in those environments. So just like this again, just like authentication, integration, knowing what to do can be also often a multi-web service transaction. You don't want to have to force your customers to call, say, 2, 3 web services to get a single action done, such as one web service, discover what bots I have available. As I select which bot I have available, another service then discovers the schema for that bot to automatically populate that. If I go ahead and hit, say, fill in some information, test 1 like this, and hit test request, and then that's going to go fire off that bot, and we'll get that response back right here. So once I have that built out, again, firing off the bot sometimes has a queue up, send over, it could be asynchronous web service call to a system. So now we have a response back from that bot that's actually executed inside the environment. If I see that again, let's maybe see another one like, I think I have a check VIN or validate VIN right here. As I change the service, get a different VIN number, hit test request like this. And now let's see, oh, there it is. All it did is take that string and put it into that little notepad action. That's basically all that bot did, simple little thing. So now I have these bot integrations set up. How do I start to apply these inside of a process orchestration? So here I set up a quick example. It's going to orchestrate inbound email. So in this case, I set up a BPMN event listener. That trigger listener is going to say receive email. That receive email here is going to map several properties of email. So Appian has automatic awareness of all the properties of external messages, such as email systems. I'm going to take the from address, attachments, body, and subject, map that over into an Appian process variable, what we would call it. After I have that process variable inbound, I'm going to send it to a variety of sources. Now here I'm going to say process in Google Natural Language Processing. So in the same case, I'm going to go to my setup. I'm going to choose that integration, that specific service I want to call. And then from that service I want to call, I want to say analyze this and pass it the body of the email. So again, how I take information from one source, pass it to another, and then receive the output of that source. After I receive maybe 2 integrations, I'm going to have a complex that's going to wait for both of those to rendezvous, and then go ahead and send that to Blue Prism. And again, I simply go to my Blue Prism service here, which is going to call that robotic action right here, which is one of those integrations I set up previously. And then I can go ahead and run that test just like this. So that's a quick little example of how we start to orchestrate these things together into processes and make these reusable components. But of course, all the integrations that we focus on are highly no-code centric. So even if I want to start using AI services, again, I want to use Google Natural Language Processing in this example. I can say, we'll go ahead and say, create a new integration off Google Natural Language Processing. I don't need to refer to Google's AI documentation at all. I simply have simple checkboxes, simple areas I need to choose from to understand how I want to apply this AI service into my specific process pattern, and then start leveraging that across all the different solutions I might want to build. So this is just a quick taste of kind of building kind of AI solutions, RPA solutions in the Appian product. But of course, we'll pivot to the last few minutes of my Ignite format with some questions and live Q&A of the Appian or what I built here. Questions? Anything? Yes, sir. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure, yeah. I mean, well, Appian, I didn't show a lot of our traditional, Appian specifically, we've been the human task management space for, decade plus. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, easily done. So I didn't show a lot of the analytics that we automatically capture from process human workflow orchestration, but yeah, you can do that. And the idea is aligning them into a single integrated process flow. So I can have the human task management with the robotic task management. Appian automatically starts to track any human kind of task performance and assignment activities. That's the nature of our product. But what we've been focusing on the past couple of years is integrating a lot of those analytics of the RPA side into our analytics engine as well, so you get kind of metrics on both sides. The use cases that we see, though, are largely, once you invest in RPA, you want to push as much to RPA as possible because the cost is a lot lower. But there's always going to be exceptions, so you want to just manage those exceptions. Exceptions tell you what your true cost is and how much human resources you have to actually use, as well as it tells you how well trained your bots are by understanding the exceptions inside the overall process flows. Yeah. Good question, though. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So, and also the question is, why is the RPA market so hot? My analogy is RPA is like ibuprofen, SOA is like amoxicillin, right? Amoxicillin will cure you. 9 times out of 10, it will get rid of the bacteria infecting your body. Ibuprofen will relieve the pain caused by the infection. It will not cure you. Ibuprofen is a much, much bigger market than amoxicillin because for a number of reasons. It's more accessible. We see RPA adoption very frequently across the business lines and not the IT lines. So just like amoxicillin, I got to go to a doctor to get amoxicillin, right? I can just go to the CVS to get ibuprofen. So it's more readily available to business to solve immediate pain. And it can also, ibuprofen can solve general pain, right? It can solve all sorts of pain. It can solve putting stuff into Excel spreadsheets. It can solve loading stuff into SAP. It's a general purpose kind of lightweight integration tool. But if you want to cure, you need to go to a proper SOA architecture, web services, process orchestration. But RPA does have broad applicability in areas where integration is difficult. You don't have IT supporting you, building proper SOA architecture, and you need maybe to do multiple complex interface transactions. Like that one I showed before, I wasn't just, say, loading it into a batch file. I was like sanitizing it into Excel. I was putting it into a notepad file. I was doing multiple steps that would have been difficult to do maybe in a SOA architecture because it has some other user interface requirements there. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Well, I'll be around, so feel free to ask. Thanks, everyone.